This is not a very technical talk. This is me sharing my experience, which I think is going to be pretty important. I know Barry asked if there's any Ted Lasso fans in the room. If you haven't watched Ted Lasso, do yourself a favor. Go watch Ted Lasso. I actually had to watch a little bit of Ted Lasso to get ready for this. But my talk is about the code school experience and how to best support new developers. So of course we're going to lead into it. There's a scene in season 1 of Ted Lasso where Ted is about to enter into a darts game. The fellow he's playing against didn't bother to ask questions. So the quote from the show, he was taking his son to school and it was painted on the wall and it said, "Be curious, not judgmental." And all of a sudden it hits me. All of them fellas that used to belittle me, not a single one of them was curious. You know, they thought they had everything all figured out, so they judged everything and everyone. If they were curious, they would have asked questions. Questions like, have you played a lot of darts, Ted? He goes on to win the dart game. But all that to say is that's what kind of sparked me wanting to give this talk and just my experience as being a new developer. So I chose courage over comfort. I started code school almost 2 years to the day. Carolina Code School, which I'll get into a little bit later, but this is me. I worked in college athletics, which I'll also get to a little later, but this was in March of 2020. So if anyone remembers what happened in March of 2020, I had worked 4 home games. And it was the last games that we played, NCAA games, and I was just done. I went into COVID, got furloughed, started thinking about what I wanted out of my life, what I wanted out of myself. Now, again, I'll get into myself a little more. I'm an athlete by nature, but I decided that I was too comfortable in what I was doing. I was too comfortable in my personal life. I was too comfortable in my professional life, and that if I was gonna move forward, if I was gonna progress, then I needed to make a change. So again, Ted Lasso is my guy. Taking on a challenge is a lot like riding a horse, isn't it? If you're comfortable while you're doing it, you're probably doing it wrong. So like I said, I am a former Division I college student athlete. I played softball. I went to Furman. I got a bachelor's degree in communication studies. And then I went on and was like, I'm gonna get my master's. This will be a great idea. Not. And I got my master's in sport administration from Belmont University. I worked as a sports performance coach and a personal trainer. There's actually someone at this conference who has attended classes where I have been the personal trainer, and you can ask him later how that was for him. But jobs, I also worked jobs in Division I college athletics from the conference level all the way to the university level at Furman at my alma mater. But then I decided, tech, sounds great. I had a kind of a tech fairy godmother who kind of led me, had a very lengthy conversation with her, and decided that tech was going to give me opportunities to be a woman in the field, to be a queer woman in the field, to bring my experience into tech and everything that comes along with that. So I decided to get uncomfortable and go to Carolina Code School. I had no coding experience at all, unless you count me making my MySpace page. Shout out to all the people who know what MySpace is. That's right. I quit my full-time job. And I was, okay, I'm not gonna have any income for 3 to 4 months. The program is 12 weeks, and then who knows after that. So I decided I was gonna put myself in a position to fail more than I ever had before. And if you've ever been around a lot of athletes, we don't really like to fail. We're expected to do things 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 times and be perfect. And to not be comfortable with just failing. That's when you usually get yelled at. But decided to go to Carolina Code School. How many people know that there's actually a code school in Greenville? Raise your hands. Awesome. That's definitely more than I thought. But I talked to a lot of people that don't know that there is actually a code school here in Greenville. So it's definitely something about this talk that I wanted to get out there. And I wanted to share that experience because I feel like a lot of people don't know what that means. They might know, oh, you went to boot camp for 12 weeks, you learned what you could, and then here you are. But there's actually an interview process. There's an interview process where you have to do an initial project, you have to do pre-work, and you have to finish it, and you have to get accepted. This is not like, I just want to sign up and do this, and then I'm going to go and they're going to accept me and it's all great. It's not how it works. It's a 12-week program. There's about 9.5 weeks of instruction, and then 2.5 weeks to complete a final project, which is a full stack application. Some of the technologies that are learned, JavaScript, which JavaScript was what we started with, and if anyone who has never coded before, and the first thing you learned was JavaScript, I wanted to quit. I don't cry a lot, but I cried. I cried. HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, React, Python, Django REST framework, and Git. So as I mentioned, the demo day, the full stack application, we built in 2.5 weeks using all the technologies that we used. There were requirements on what that final project needed to include. So it wasn't like we can just willy-nilly, maybe I'll add this, maybe I won't. Very intentional, very specific on what we needed. And then we had demo day where we invite the entire community, the tech community, to come in and see our final projects. It's like our first hello to the tech world. So you better make sure that you have your stuff together. And if you know that button doesn't work, don't click that button. May or may not have done that. And then after that, it doesn't end if you graduate, which there is a chance that you might not graduate. It's not a given. You go into it 12 weeks. If you don't meet the requirements, you do not graduate. Then you get to go to career services. So must graduate to participate. There's 4 weeks of hands-on career prep. Everything from resumes, LinkedIn, going field trips to some of the folks that work at companies that are in this room. Networking events like Tech After 5, just kind of going to anything and everything. And let me tell you, going to code school is drinking from a fire hose, especially if you have zero experience, which I had. Zero experience, except for the pre-work that I did. So, why am I telling you all this? You may or may not be curious why I'm standing up here. Curiosity. This is the definition that I found that suits my presentation best, so this is what you get. A strong desire to learn or to know something. A strong desire to learn or to know something. So I wanted to tell you about my experience because it's important that you understand the lens through which I am viewing this process, right? So it's going to be important for you to understand things about me that you're going to be able, as a new developer and you senior developers out there, things about my experience that are going to be important for you to know in order for us to A, work together the best, and B, for you to help me learn. Curiosity. I've heard curiosity was talked about in the very first talk that we had today. That's what this profession is all about. If you're not curious, what's the point, right? So it's important and I say curiosity is a two-way street because as a new developer, I need to be just as curious as the person that I'm working with, as the senior that I'm working with, right? If I don't take initiative and show that I'm curious about things, hey, what are you learning? What are you working on? What can you teach me? Then this doesn't work. But as a senior developer, you've also got to be curious about what it is that I know and what I bring to the table. So creating opportunities and spaces for new developers to feel comfortable asking those questions, because we're coming out of code school and we don't think we know everything. And if we do, then you might need to let me talk to that person, because I can tell you right now, we don't. But it's about creating the space to be able to say, I don't know. And I am thankful that I had an instructor in code school that created an opportunity and an environment that made me feel like I could say, whoa, you just said open your terminal, I have no idea what that means. Can we slow down? But I got used to that environment of them saying, you know what, I don't know, but I need to look it up real quick. Let's Google it together, right? So everything we do, letting the curiosity flow in both directions. We talked briefly about being curious about who you're working with, and then dropping all preconceived notions as it might stifle curiosity. Don't assume what I know, just like I'm not going to assume what you know. If we do that and we kind of drop that from the start and we come in it with a blank slate, it's going to be great, right? So mentorship and support. Now, I am up here because I had really awesome senior developers that invested their time in me. And I wouldn't be here having this experience and sharing this with you if it weren't for those folks. I knew coming out of code school that I needed to be in an environment where I had a mentor, or I had support, because that to me was something that I knew about myself, especially not just as an athlete. I know I need a little coaching, okay? I need a little bit. So I looked for those opportunities, was able to get one, thankfully. But I think there's kind of three things here, three kind of tenets, I guess, of mentorship and support, and that's awareness. It's meeting new developers where they are. So again, we're not writing pretty code. We're not writing super clean code, depending on what your definition of clean code is, right? So don't expect me to sit here and solve something in one line that you know you can do in one line when I need to do it in 3 or 4, right? So don't expect that. Get to know them, where they've come from, and their past careers and experiences. Like I just said about myself. I told you all those things about myself because it's important that you know, okay, Stephanie was an athlete, worked in college athletics, went to code school. So what might I have that have come from those experiences that are gonna make me hopefully a good member of your team, right? So I've been on teams, so I know what it's like to work on a team. Let's see, she went to code school. She got her ass handed to her for 12 weeks. So clearly she's kind of a glutton for punishment a little bit, right? So, all right, we can throw some things at her. She works well under pressure. She knows how to pivot, right? She's got all of this real experience writing code, okay? Writing code. And then most new developers, especially, as I said before, are aware of how much we don't know. And if you find someone that thinks they know, please have them come talk to me. But we know what we don't know. We know that there's a lot that we don't. I'm sitting here at this conference today writing down stuff I need to go look up later, right? So again, the environment, creating a safe space, a safe and supportive environment for saying, I don't know. I can't tell you how many times I have talked to people and they're just like, well, I wasn't really sure, so I'm really glad you asked, right? So ask the question, raise your hand, say I don't know. Again, I had an instructor at Carolina Code School that had a comfortable environment, a safe environment for me to say, whoa, slow down, I don't know. Allow them to write what they know, which we just talked about. If I am gonna write something in a loop that you can write in a one-liner, just let me write the loop, right? Because that's what I understand and that's what I know. And then offer, hey, that's really great, cool. Here's how you can do it another way, right? And this is probably, and it's kind of hidden in this presentation, but this is probably one of the most important things about this talk. Be who you needed when you were them. A lot of you in this room have been doing this for years and years and years, and that's awesome. But don't forget, when you started, you needed somebody. Also, if you are someone who is sitting there saying, but no one was there to help me, what good does that do this community? What good does that do tech? We're here to innovate. We're here to drive things forward. We're not here to say, well, I didn't have help, so I'm not gonna help anybody. That's not how this works, and I think everyone in this room knows that, whether you want to admit it or not, right? Failure. Again, I still suck at failing. I still sit at my computer some days and I'm like, oh, I don't want to write the wrong thing. Help them embrace the failure that comes with curiosity in this profession. We all know in this room, we're gonna fail. We know that chasing errors is kind of what we do some days, most days, right? Oh, I got a new error. I failed differently. So how is that gonna drive me forward? Okay, so helping them embrace that, helping them just saying, hey, I've been there. Some days it's just like that, right? Failing is how we learn. And then failure can spark imposter syndrome, so share ways to combat it. And that can be as simple as just saying, hey, are you good? And being someone, like I said, being someone that you needed when you were new that says, hey, how you doing today? Just that simple question of like, hey, how's it going? How's life, right? I had a mentor when I started at Orange Bees and he was super quiet. He was 10 years younger than me. and I made him talk to me. Hey, buddy, how's your day? He was probably like, this, here she comes again. I cannot do it with this girl. Bless him. So the moral of the story, and again, I gotta throw my guy in, Ted Lasso. But the moral of the story, just be kind. A little kindness goes a long way. And I know that's something that we learned like in pre-K and kindergarten, like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We got the golden rule, all that stuff. But I think just in life in general, we don't know what people are experiencing, right? We don't know what they're going through. So it's important that we check in with our people and that we just show a little bit of kindness, right? Empathy. Practice radical empathy. Like, it's really something that connects us all. This shared experience that we have is what connects us all together, right? So having that empathy and saying, hey, I know what you're going through, or I know what it's been like, or I hear you, I see you. I see you working hard. You might be pumping out 5 lines in 2 days, but I see you working, right? Self-awareness. Be aware of the lens through which you are viewing your mentee or a new developer, right? So be aware of like, what's my baggage? What am I bringing to the table that could impact the way that I am viewing this person? And for new developers, be self-aware that you don't know everything. I know there's some code school grads in the room. Y'all don't know everything. I don't know everything, okay? So be aware of the things that you need, especially if you're a new developer, or even if you are someone who is scared to step into a mentoring role or to be that person for somebody. Just have the courage to do it, because this person has the courage to step in and ask you, I don't know. So be aware of your strengths, right? How often do we sit there and look at what's good about us? So look at those things that you do really well and think, hey, this is something that I might be able to teach somebody, right? I'm all about self-awareness. I think curious goes without saying. It's in the title of this talk, right? But curiosity is our superpower, especially as developers, right? The more curious we are, the more we want to dig in, the more we want to figure out why it's going wrong and what is going wrong. That's just, a lot of people are afraid to do that. That's kind of what makes this profession cool, is that you can be curious and learn like 10 different things, right? I actually had a coworker who learned how to code or got interested in coding by trying to cheat his video games because he was curious to know if he could do it. I wouldn't have thought of that, but he did. But he was curious, okay? Invest. And invest, the more you invest in others, the more you'll see in returns. And I actually stole this from Sean Reed. We gave a short little version of this talk at Tech Slam and Eggs, and Sean said this, and it really struck me because it's true. It might not seem like it, and it kind of goes back to that whole, well, no one did it for me, so why should I do it for someone else? Don't be that guy or girl or they or them. Don't be that, right? Be somebody who wants to help. Be somebody who wants to invest their knowledge into the next person that comes along, right? And then comfort. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. A lot of folks probably are not comfortable stepping into mentorship roles or into leadership roles, but I promise that you probably have something that somebody wants to know. And so it's important, again, that folks that have all this knowledge take these people under their wing. Take folks like me. Just ask, is there anything that you want to learn? I had 2. One of them is here, senior developer, and he would just come to my desk and say, hey, let me see what you're working on. And not in a way of like, let me see what you're working on. Are you doing work? It was like, hey, let me see what you're working on. Is there something that I can teach you? Oh, I see that you did this like this. That's awesome. Let me show you another way. And so then I can go into my notes and have like a notes thing open and just type out like, okay, this is another way to do this. I never would have thought of that. And then sometimes what new developers can bring is the simple solution. How often do we get bogged down in like, this has to be this super complicated solution? I know I'm gonna have to write like a million lines and do whatever and loop this through that and all that stuff. But sometimes a new developer can bring perspective of, oh, you know what? This doesn't need to be that complicated, right? This can be super easy. And so just sharing that perspective back and forth, it's just one of those things. So I just want to be up here to, let you know about the code school experience, because there are juniors that are coming up and those folks have things. Going to code school requires you to have things that they don't let you into code school unless you have them. Tenacity, determination, grit, the ability to learn quickly, learning how to ask questions, okay? And so when you are looking to bring somebody onto your team, it's important to not overlook these folks, because these folks can bring things to your organization that you might not have, right? You might not have already, or they'll just bring a fresh perspective. And so just continue to be curious, continue to take people under your wing, continue to just be the community that we are, right? Because another reason that I think probably a lot of us got into tech, it's one of that I got into tech, is the community. Everybody here, the meetups, the learning, the games, the fun, all of that stuff, right? And I think that kind of sets us apart. So this is your motivational speech for today. You didn't know you were coming for it, but you got one. Okay, so again, be curious, not judgmental. Learn what people want to teach you and teach people things that they might not know they want to learn, right? And do it in a way that is kind and empathetic. And I think that, the only way that we innovate in this industry is when we have all these diverse voices in the room and when everybody feels comfortable speaking up. So create those environments for people to be able to speak up, stay curious, stay humble. Thank you for listening. Let's connect. Thank you.